And at this point, I wonder if we could have a pledge of allegiance and then a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Again, we have a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Matthey.
Here.
Councilmember Bolin.
Here.
Councilmember Milawambwe.
Here.
Councilmember Emig.
Present.
Councilmember Painter.
Here.
Councilmember Carrillo.
Here.
Councilmember Black.
Here.
Councilmember Crable.
Here.
Councilmember Bray.
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. Thank you very much. We do have a quorum. We're going to go ahead and start with a COVID update by our distinguished city manager, Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I've got a handful of updates, but I'll move through these quickly. COVID testing that Deputy City Manager Tyus shared. It's going to turn into mobile testing out in the rural areas of McLean County. And that's something that more so wanted to share with the community. If they've got family, the mobile testing is something that's going to be stood up very soon. I think most might have seen this in the media where Normal Fire Department has some COVID positive cases and some other firemen that are in quarantine. I know that Fire Chief Brian Moore is talking to Chief Humer in Normal, and definitely have spoke to one another, trying to figure out what a backup plan might be, because that is a large number for a smaller department, and we want to be there for our Twin City. The other item that I wanted to share is that our CDBG CARES Act money, there is a personal side, and I think that's around $275,000 that we have set aside for program and for the individual type assistance. Right now, we're processing over 150 applications that Jennifer Toney, Amy Overton, and others are working on to get those processed. Now, on the business side, I think we set aside $150,000 as program money. I don't think we've received any applications yet, and are working on using that money potentially for job training, which is an allowable use of the money. So reaching out to some of the partners in the community to see if that might be money that could be used for true placement into a COVID type of position to get somebody employed. And actually, that's a great opportunity where we're talking about permanent employment potentially, and it's a workforce development improvement. Again, another opportunity under this COVID-19 situation that we're in. Another area that we potentially could use the CDBG CARES Act money on the business programming side is LifeSil. Shared a week or so ago some concerns that they had. I don't think that there's been any community complaints, doesn't need to be, but LifeSil brought forward some ADA concerns with what we're doing downtown. We feel that this money is also money that could be used to partner with business downtown to make those ADA improvements. So that's something that staff is assessing some of those needs in the downtown. Another last comment is we continue to track our financial impacts as it directly relates to COVID, and we're continuing to trend better than our negative projections. So still always going to be that negative impact as it relates and is due to COVID, but we are doing better than what our conservative projections were early on. So more to come, not out of this yet, but continue to track fairly well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. Thank you not only for the report, but all the hard work that you and our staff are doing to try to help make our community safer. We do move next to the item of recognitions and appointments, and these are recognitions and appointments to the Police Pension Board and the John M. Scott Healthcare Commission. And I wonder if I can turn this over to our clerk. Oh, yes, you've already got them up there. Dean Messinger. And we had John Scott too. Okay. Angie Chesensky and Judy Newbrander, Philly Sebastian, and Karen Stitt. Okay. Thank you very much. At this point, we move to public comment. We did receive some email. Do we have anybody waiting for us to speak to us this evening, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mayor, we do have 2 people registered, Diane Hollister and Zachary Gitrich. We could start with Diane.
Okay, that sounds great. Diane, you have up to 3 minutes. Thank you, Diane.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
I have 3 safety concerns. First one is I'd like to thank the Bloomington Police Department for their support, empathy, commiseration, and concern provided, particularly for me in light of the 4th of July festivities that have been going on for quite a while. Thank you to the police department for their patience shown in light of the complaints regarding the overzealousness of those who've decided upon celebrating Independence Day 1 month before and 1 week after the observance of the national holiday. I rarely phone the police, but this year with the disturbance, it's been over the top, all the noise. My family, neighbors, friends have voiced complaints about the revelry becoming a nuisance to people who have to work the next day because it goes on until 1 a.m. My pets are disturbed. Children and infants their sleep is disturbed by being awakened. And a lot of times people, not the police, but people say, well, boys will be boys or live with it, alternatives to these fireworks. But I don't think it's acceptable. I realize that the era of COVID has served as an excuse or a reason for some people to go off steam during these times. But July 3rd and 4th, they're just fine to celebrate. Other days of disturbances are not. Could we please have some plan in place for fireworks 2021 before next year, or hopefully Miller Park will be back open by then, but some plan set in place to discourage revelers or face fines would help cease this constant noise, this din. And I think that hitting people in the pocketbook is probably going to be the only way to wake people up. And this is a safety concern because in the wrong hands with people who are amateur fireworks, people in the neighborhoods, it can wreak havoc because people can really get hurt. My second issue, when I was thinking along these lines about the fireworks, I was thinking to myself, how can I distinguish between a car backfiring, a gunshot, possibly for domestic violence, or a firecracker? Is it possible for Bloomington Police Department and Normal Police Department to look into pooling resources to obtain a shot spotter? It's a detection equipment that's put around the city to determine where shots are coming from. And it does have some sensitivity enough to detect which among the 3, if it's a shot, if it's a firecracker or a car backfiring. Peoria has the system in place and it's been widely accepted because I've looked it up
Diane,
online.
I'm sorry.
I know
You've exceeded your time. I'm sorry, Diane.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Madam Clerk, you had Zach, I believe you said.
Yes, Zachary Gitrich. Are you there, Zach?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Excellent. First off, to Alderperson Emig and Alderperson Painter, I've been trying to reach out to you about an interview. I'll go ahead and send you an email with my contact information. I want to talk briefly about policing and throw out a couple of questions I'd like you to cogitate on. Is it necessary that every traffic stop be answered by someone with a gun? Couldn't that job be performed by an unarmed person? 99.99% of traffic stops have no need for deadly force. The person we're paying as taxpayers get paid more because they're armed, so an unarmed person could perform the same function while saving the city money. This unarmed individual could still have the power to make arrests. They could still arrest someone for intoxicated driving or whatever the offending action is. In fact, most civilized nations don't even use armed officers for traffic stops. Their amount of civilian deaths by cops and police deaths by civilians are much lower than ours. Some might even consider America's way of policing as particularly barbaric or savage. If there's a homeless person trespassing somewhere, is it necessary the person that responds be armed or even be a law enforcement agent? Would it not be more efficient and less likely to escalate if we had a homeless advocate address this situation? There can still be law enforcement available, like around the corner, in case the situation does indeed escalate, but it's not necessary that an armed police officer is the first to respond to a minor or nonviolent situation. The mere presence of the police is enough to escalate any situation. I believe the community would be better served if instead of the first person called, the police were the third or the fourth. Calls to defund the police are not the same as disbanding police or abolishing the police. If someone murders or attacks someone else, we all expect the state to use violence to apprehend that individual and punish them. But minimizing the use of these extreme forms of violence is also necessary and cost effective. A few years ago in Peoria, I had to get orders of protection against my roommates. The police were the ones who showed up and threatened them with arrest if they didn't leave. At this point, I had stopped caring about these people's well-being, and I personally couldn't have cared less if they had slept under a bridge. But even I recognized it would have been a better situation if when the police were kicking them out, they also offered them temporary housing. That would have been a better situation overall. Reducing how much is spent on policing allows us to invest in affordable housing, drug addiction and mental health, and yes, social workers too. It's about reducing how much homelessness and drug addiction and other of these petty and often nonviolent crimes ultimately cost our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and move to the consent agenda. Are there any items that any member of the city council would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Hold on, let me just see if I can do this.
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Could I please read the names of the individuals that emailed public comment?
Oh, yes, of course. I'm sorry.
Perfect. Thank you. Justin Boyd, Heidi Zimmerman, Alice Staley, and Ricky Lee Benecke. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we do have several people. I'm going to start with Councilmember Bray. You want to remove something from the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor. Item I.
Okay. Bray. Sorry, I'm writing these things down. Okay. Councilmember Carrillo.
Thanks. Item C, like cat.
Okay. Excuse me. And Councilmember Craybill.
8B, Mayor.
Okay, Craybill. Okay, Councilmember Black.
8K is in kilo.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, Scott. Okay. And Councilmember Milawambwe.
Item F, F as in fireworks.
Ooh. Topic du jour. Okay. Okay. We're going to go ahead and start then with, let's see. I forgot who was, what order. I think it was Councilmember Bray. I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
Mayor,
Councilmember Bray.
do you want a motion to approve the other parts?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve as
Everything
presented, with the exception.
of those items. And second by Councilmember Matthey. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll? Thank you.
Right. And just to clarify, that motion is with the exception of 8I, 8C, 8B, 8K, and 8F. Councilmember Matthey?
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin?
Yes.
Councilmember Milawambwe?
Yes.
Councilmember Emig?
Yes.
Councilmember Painter?
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Black?
Yes.
Councilmember Crable?
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Thank you again. Now we'll start with my bad memory of who started first, but I'm going to go ahead and start with Councilmember Bray. You pulled item I, and I'm going to turn that over to you.
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to recuse myself. This involves my employer.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And I'll be recusing myself as well.
Okay.
Mayor.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to approve this item as presented?
I will make that motion.
Okay, yeah, again, just noting that the exceptions that we have with Councilmember Craybill and Councilmember Bray.
I will make that motion.
Okay, is there a second to Councilmember Boland's motion?
I second.
Second by Councilmember Carrillo. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey.
Jamie?
Councilmember
Jamie.
Matthey. There he is.
Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Boland.
Yes.
Councilmember Milawambwe.
Yes.
Councilmember Emig.
Yes.
Councilmember Painter.
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Black.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Motion carries. No names to announce, Madam Clerk. Again, I'm not 100% sure this is the exact order in which they were pulled, but I'm going to go ahead and turn to Councilmember Carrillo for, I believe you pulled item 8C.
Yes. I'd just like the ability to vote no.
Okay, all righty. Is there a motion either yes or no?
I move that we reject.
Okay, is there a second? Is there a
Second.
Second
Second.
by Councilmember Craybill. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
I'm sorry, Chair, I got a question.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can I ask the maker of the motion why we're rejecting?
Yeah, so my understanding is that this is a replacement vehicle, but I personally have made a pledge not to continue providing resources that increase the volume or the size of the police department. So I'd like to be able to vote no.
Thank you.
And Mayor, also Corporation Counsel Jeff Jurgens has his hand up.
Oh, Jeff, you want to add something? Jurgens.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, this action is actually, we're recommending to reject the bids.
Correct.
So approval of this item is rejecting the bids.
Right.
Now, the reason we're recommending that is because we can buy them cheaper from another source. So a motion not to reject, just wanted to clarify that and see if there are any questions.
Oh, okay. So then when we get new bids, we'll have another motion that we need to, or we will have another item on the agenda that we need to approve?
No, it actually wouldn't come back to the council because it would be under the financial limit. It wouldn't have to come to the council. And it'd be through a joint purchasing agreement.
So it could come under the city manager's authority.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. At this point, we do have a motion on the floor. If a yes motion is to not fund this. Okay.
Could I?
Yeah.
Could I make I'm just going to try. Could I move to amend the motion?
And how do you amend the motion?
I would ask that a move to amend so that when this item is brought back, that this item be brought back and put in front of the council's on the council agenda to consider.
Okay. So in addition to not approving it, that it would be come back. Does the maker of the motion approve that?
Yes, I just want to clarify. I'd like for us to reject the bid, and then I'd like for it to come back to council.
I think that's what Councilmember Craybill is saying as well.
I think I had made the motion in a way that was kind of confusing though. So Leslie, can you help us? You know what I want to do. So
Yeah, so what you want to do is you want to move forward with the motion on the table to reject these bids. However, you're amending it so that the purchase does have to come back before council in the future.
Yep. So I move that we approve 8C with the amendment that it comes back to council.
Okay.
All right. At this point, we're going to go ahead and start. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey.
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
No.
Councilmember Millawamwe,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Black,
Yes.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries. I believe there were 2 noes to announce, Madam Clerk. Is that right?
There was just one no to announce, and that was Councilmember Boland.
Okay, thank you very much. Apologize. All right, we then move to item B, and I believe Councilmember Craybill pulled that. Councilmember Craybill.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move to approve the appointment set forth in 8B, exclusive of the reappointment of Ryan Whitehouse.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Carrillo. And so we have a motion on the floor that would approve this group except for Ryan Whitehouse.
And Mayor, can I make just a procedural point?
Sure.
And maybe Jeff Jurgens can confirm, but assuming this passes, then somebody could make a motion to approve Ryan Whitehouse. Is that it? Is that accurate?
I would assume that's the case. Is that the case, Mr. Jurgens?
Yes.
Okay. And, but if it does not, then we go back to the possible original motion. So we'll see at this point. Councilmember Bray, excuse me. Did you have something to add? I'm sorry.
So yes, I wanted our counsel, Jeff Jurgens, to speak to the manner in which the motion's been called, and if that is the manner in which we can proceed, or if did he have another recommendation?
Jeff, anything else?
No, I think that motion's in order. It's you don't have to take the motion that's presented. And so this is just to approve the other appointees. And as mentioned, if it does pass, then a motion is still in order on Mr. Whitehouse.
Okay.
So I'll just follow up on that. So what I'm hearing you say is that we could vote no to this motion and then turn around and do a motion to grant the full panel of appointees separately. Is that what
That's correct.
I heard you say? So a no vote and then a follow-up motion as originally proposed.
That's correct. If the motion fails, then any other motion would be in order, including approving the full slate.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and call the question. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Matthey,
No.
Councilmember Bolin,
No.
Councilmember Millawamwe,
No.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Painter,
No.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Black,
No.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
No.
Madam Clerk, I believe there are 6 noes to announce. The motion fails. Would you announce the noes, please?
Yes, Councilmember Matthey, Councilmember Bolin, Councilmember Millawamwe, Councilmember Painter, Councilmember Black, Councilmember Bray.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Bray, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, Mayor. Now I'd like to make a motion that we approve the slate of candidates to the appointments as outlined.
Okay, is there a second? A second by Councilmember Bolin, sorry. Okay, and then we do have Councilmember Crable. You wanted to speak to this?
Yes, I'd like to have the opportunity to note while I'll be voting no against this motion, and it's really, again, for the purposes of voting against Ryan Whitehouse. And I just wanted to say a few things about why I'm doing that. I know that he served for 8 years, and he's being sought to reappoint for another 4 years. I'm grateful for anyone that chooses to serve for our city as a volunteer, but I think it's important whether a person fits with the needs of the board they're serving on. I understand from others that Mr. Whitehouse played a large role in making Connect Transit more fiscally responsible. The question now, though, is whether his appointment continues to serve the needs of the community. There's a petition opposing this reappointment that has more than 200 signatures. I believe we need somebody on the board who can feel confident that he or she will listen to the ridership needs of the community, which means listening to riders and in addition to relying on data. I believe we need someone on the board that represents a transit dependent rider or a paratransit rider. As what we know from last year, these riders were not represented when the board decided to cut routes and increase fares. The riders and their advocates had to rise up and have their voices heard. Only then did the board listen and appoint a working group. Also, Mr. Whitehouse is part of the board when the route structure was changed that cut a lot of stops in many of our wards. Did the changes have benefits? Sure. Route timeliness has greatly increased, for instance, but that does not help those riders who no longer have access. Ryan has been a part of the leadership of the board as we have focused on compliance with the IGA. I'll note that the board and Connect Transit have failed to submit the annual budget by the end of their fiscal year as required by the IGA. And so as a council, we've been unable to exercise our fiduciary responsibilities with the money that we provide to Connect Transit. I spoke with Ryan last Friday, and while I appreciate the conversation we had, that did not fully assuage my concerns. That is why I'm voting no on his reappointment. And again, I'm not voting no on the other 3 appointments. That's just kind of how the motion has come out. So I'll leave it at that.
Councilmember Boland and Carrillo.
Donna, you're on mute.
Donna, you're on mute.
I had a very long conversation with both the mayor, you're aware of that, and also with Ryan Whitehouse. I've been involved with with Connect Transit for years, and I went to all the meetings for the Connect to the Future. Ryan was not chair during all these issues. There was somebody else who was chair. I specifically spoke to Ryan when I met with him last week, and I shared my expectations very clearly, and I will hold his feet to the fire. He has a value to the board at this time. We currently will have 2 seats that will address the special needs of the disabled on the board now. So 2 out of 7 votes will address those needs. And I think that the makeup of the board as is going to be valuable for moving Connect Transit forward. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Boland. We're going to go to Councilmember Carrillo and then Councilmember Bray.
I think we have talked about this at length last year, so I'll keep my comments short. As an old disability rights slogan says, nothing about us without us. So I'd really like to see our Connect Transit board be led by a paratransit driver. And I think it's important that we listen and center the voices of people who are most directly and significantly affected, and members of the disability community have expressed serious reservations about this appointment. And so I'll be voting no, specifically in relation to Mr. Whitehouse's appointment, although I thank him for his service over the past 8 years.
Thank you. Councilmember Bray.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I made this motion to approve this slate of candidates. I think that you've done a fine job in putting together teams on these various boards and commissions of people who are postured to be successful and represent a broad swath of our community. And I thank you for that. And I'm just excited tonight to vote for these candidates. So thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, we're going to call the question. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey.
Yes.
Councilmember Boland.
Yes.
Councilmember Milawambwe.
Yes.
Councilmember Emig.
Yes.
Councilmember Painter.
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo.
No.
Councilmember Black.
Yes.
Councilmember Crable.
No.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Madam Clerk, the motion carries 7-2. There are 2 nays to announce. Would you please announce them?
Councilmember Carrillo and Councilmember Crable.
Okay. I think I still have 2 more items on our consent agenda here. Councilmember Milawambwe, you pulled item F.
I just wanted to recuse myself because it involves that issue.
Okay, is there a motion to approve item F as presented?
I will make that motion.
Okay, made by Councilmember Boland. Is there a second?
You've got Councilmember Painter.
I have Councilmember Painter. I'm looking for her hand. Oh, there it is. Oh, I see it. There we go. Okay, sorry. And second by Councilmember Painter. Seeing no questions, I don't see anybody. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll on this issue?
Councilmember Matthey,
Yes.
Councilmember Boland,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Julie?
I see her
Yes.
there. There she is. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
You're fine. Thanks. Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Black,
Yes.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Motion carries. I'm going to go now to item K, and I believe Councilmember Black pulled that. Consideration of an ordinance or special use permit to allow chicken keeping. Councilmember Black.
That is correct. I'll be making a motion here in a moment to reject as presented. I've heard concerns from the neighborhood about this location. And as I understand it, if this motion were to fail, we would revert to the original motion of approval. And I'd be voting no on that to provide the residents a voice who have expressed some concern.
Okay, thank you very much. So you're making a motion. Can you state it? I don't want
to reject reject item 8K as presented.
As presented. Okay. Is there a second to the item
Could I ask a question?
You can,
Scott,
as soon as we get a second. If there's
okay.
I'll second.
Second.
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Councilmember Crable. Now, Councilmember Boland, we do have a motion and it did not die.
Okay. I would like an elaboration. I did get the email and read it from a few people that were opposed. Could you explain a little more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. So a number of folks they wanted to, well, they participate. Someone participated in the public hearing, the zoning or the planning public hearing, and then we saw the public comment that came tonight. And there was also some concern about some other folks who had expressed some concern to me one-off about this permit. And I want to make sure that their voices are reflected. And at the very beginning of when we started talking chicken coops, I certainly am not the biggest fan of them, but my thought process was if the neighbors don't care, I don't care. And in this case, we have immediate neighbors who care and are concerned about this. So given that, I would respect everybody's opinion if they think that's okay to proceed. But I want to make sure those folks have a voice in this process.
Fair enough. That's your job. Thanks, Scott.
And
thank you. Councilmember Crable.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I think they're just concerns with regard to, what kind of wild animals that this chicken coop could bring, how close their properties are, and, concerns about what they know about the tenant that were expressed with regard to her ability to, to keep animals on her property, that type of thing.
Great. Thank you very much. Councilmember Carrillo.
Hypothetically speaking, if this motion was to fail and if the permit was approved, what recourse does the city have if things go wrong? So like if we approve the permit for the chicken coop and then, a couple months down the line, then, the neighbors have documented complaints.
Make clear it's a chicken coop, not a coup.
Yeah, sorry, I can't hear, so I can't hear myself talk.
I'm just teasing you. Mr. Juergens, do you have an answer to clarify for us?
If the chickens try and take over. Yeah, so with the special use, they've got to continue to meet all the conditions of the special use. And if not, that special use can be revoked. And Katie may be able to speak a little bit to that. It hasn't happened, I don't think, in my tenure with the city, but it's pretty rare. But they've got to continue to meet those conditions of the special use. Katie, is there anything you would add to that?
Katie, do you have anything to add to that?
I agree with Jeff. If we get complaints about odors or noise or smell, or they decide to have more than 4 chickens on the property, we can use the special use permit revocation as a mechanism for enforcing the code. We can also use other parts of our ordinance, the nuisance ordinance and other parts of city code that are enforceable as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for clarifying. So yeah, I guess what I would argue is that we can always try it and pull it if it's not working. The chicken coop. So that would be my argument for approving it.
All right. At this point, we're going to go. We have a motion on the floor that is to deny this as presented. That is a motion made by Councilmember Black and seconded by Councilmember Craybill, I believe. We're going to go ahead and call the roll, Madam Clerk.
So sorry. So a yes is denying it, right?
A yes is denying it. Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Matthey,
No.
Councilmember Bolin,
No.
Councilmember Millawambwe,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
No.
Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo,
No.
Councilmember Black,
Yes.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
The motion carries, and we have how many nays to announce?
We have 4 nays to announce.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthey, Councilmember Bolin, Councilmember Emig, and Councilmember Carrillo.
Okay. Thank you very much.
At
So
least
the
chickens
motion
aren't going to take over.
Pardon me?
At least the chickens aren't going to take over.
We don't have to worry about a chicken coup. That's true. Okay. At this point, we're going to go ahead and move to our regular agenda. And the first item, which would be 9A, is consideration and action on the ratification of the telecommunicators contract as requested by the Human Resource Department and the Police Department. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Mr. Gleason for a 5-minute presentation and up to a 5-minute total council discussion. Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This will fall into the category like other collective bargaining agreements that relatively short process, very positive process with the union and the union leadership. I would categorize this as a win-win. The telecommunicators that we have that work in the communication center, they are represented by the PBPA. What we have before you tonight, it's been ratified by the union. And what's before you tonight is an agreement that's a 2-year agreement. It's a little bit shorter because it's part of an ongoing conversation for possibilities with our communication center. Long way to go, but it's one that I'm actively involved with other entities that we have. The agreement provides for a 2.5% pay increase both years. Slight adjustment to how soon you accrue vacation. And then also these employees are covered by IMRF, and this is truly the last collective bargaining agreement regarding sick leave buyback. While no employees would have fallen under that, it truly is the last collective bargaining agreement, and I wanted to note that because that's definitely something past council, this council, gave me directive to address, and it has been. Request approval by council mayor.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Gleason, for all your work on this. At this point, council members, concerns, issues, questions, or a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept as presented.
Moved by Councilmember Bolin. Is there a second to Councilmember Bolin's?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilmember Bray. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Millawambwe,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Black,
Yes.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Thank you very much. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. We go right along to the presentation on Jamie Matthey's Aldermanic Initiative proposal to bring back the Downtown Task Force report as requested by the administration. There is no recommended motion tonight. This is staff doing some of their work, and there's a presentation by Mr. Gleason and Ms. Hahn, and then we'll have a council discussion following that. And this would be to give staff direction. When they bring something back to us, do they maybe bring a couple of options? They bring one option. What do they do? So the staff is looking for direction on this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Gleason. Tim?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're going to work, as you'll see on the screen, from the October 2017 Downtown Bloomington Task Force final report. And this report was not adopted, and we're going to hold on this screen for a couple of minutes. We've allocated for myself and for Economic Development Director Melissa Hahn 15 minutes, and then we'll turn this over to Council for a 30-minute discussion. And like the mayor said, this is Council Member Matthey's council initiative, and we're at this point in the council initiative process where staff provides some feedback and responds to some of the questions that have occurred in previous meetings regarding this council initiative. The final report was submitted for consideration October 2017. The downtown revitalization was very much a topic in my city manager recruitment. Once I started in the position in July of 2018, this was something that I met with the elected officials, very much a topic for me to be aware of, because this had just occurred 6 months prior, where the task force completed their findings, turned it into a final report, but it was not approved by council. And I guess I would categorize this, obviously I wasn't here in the fall of 2017, but I didn't necessarily categorize this when I'm meeting with the elected officials individually as controversial, just difference of opinion. And with that, I thought this is a great document because I reviewed it and thought that this was something that I could address, because council very much placed a high priority on the development of our downtown. It's 28 blocks of historic, beautiful charm, and we have opportunities there that council, I think, shared some frustration that we study things to potentially ad nauseum is a term that I had heard, and felt very much in this document that we're going to walk through that there was an opportunity for low to no cost and what I would categorize as low hanging fruit. But there were things that I needed to do first. I needed to assess the team in place to accomplish these tasks. One of the things was assessing the staff that I had in place. The other one was to assess and learn more and develop a relationship with the Downtown Business Association. Other downtown stakeholders. There are many players in the downtown that either manage businesses or are property owners. And that was part of this process, that I had, set for myself. Also, when I talked to other downtown stakeholders and even some of the members of the DBA, is when I first heard the idea of formalizing a downtown commissioner board that would be appointed by the mayor, potentially approved by the council members. And then obviously DBA would continue, very important piece in all of this, but they would be an advisory component potentially to the Downtown Board or Commission. But that's when I first heard about this. So that's something else potentially to consider in the future. Felt that there were areas that we were deficient, but more could be improved on, and created the Economic Development Department with Melissa Hahn as the director, and this occurred in March of 2019. Citywide function, obviously, but first couple of years, heavy focus on the downtown. And Melissa definitely accomplished that in 2019, and except for COVID-19, got in the way of some of the plans that we had for summer 2020, but we're not letting that get in the way. We're still trying to do some exciting things in our downtown. If we would, Phil, advance to the next page. This right here, you look at the members here. It was a great roster of people that were made up of this team to work on the downtown task force. So impressive group. Page 3, Phil. The document you will have to the side, if it's dated as having a shelf life of 3 to 5 years. Well, this document was created in the fall, early winter of 2017. So actually we're approaching that 3-year mark. In no opinion, I just am highlighting what the intended shelf life of this document was. You'll see in this page that there are 3 categories under placemaking, where we're talking specifically in the area downtown. That's Madison, East Street, Market, and Front. It was very targeted when this group talked about these different possibilities in the downtown. We have placemaking, beautification, and public art. Deputy City Manager Tyus is actually working on this public art topic, trying to formalize this process so that there is a protection that the speech that we're communicating or the art that we are displaying is one that has been vetted and approved by the City Council. It provides a protection for unwanted type of speech, potentially inflammatory, but absent a formal process, we don't have that protection in place. Also, another area was public places and walkability under placemaking. And then catalyst was another category, and then also supportive were areas. We're going to walk through the slides slowly until we get to section 3 on public parking. Phil, slide 4. And slide 5. And this right here is the beautification of public art. Melissa's portion of this is going to actually share with the community stuff that has already occurred. You know, I mentioned in my opening comments that this was a great document for me to use as a template, whether it was adopted, whether it wasn't adopted, whether we tweak this document today, whatever course council takes. This has actually been what I've been using the last 2 years to do many of the things that we've already seen occur in the downtown, and much more to come. And much more to come, because I know that's the desire of this elected body. And I think the community has been very welcoming to the changes that we've seen over the past couple of years. Next slide, please. Just some different pictures and possibilities and examples was part of this document. Phil, next slide. And again, planning document references. There was quite a bit of work put into this, and very impressive product that was created by the group. Next slide, please. Again, just some more documentation and recommendations. Slide 9. Public parking is an area that is an ongoing conversation for us. Many opinions on opening the deck. You know, that there is a wide variety of opinions, which is one reason last fall when we were about ready to do the striping, because we had completed the downtown paving in some areas, we stopped that. Actually, we stopped that at like 7:55 in the morning when contracted work was to start at like 8 a.m. And it was the right thing to do. And we have continued to hold that because we don't have a complete decision on what the downtown parking should be. COVID definitely has gotten in the way of this. City staff were doing a downtown parking survey. It's not a complete document because our parking and driving patterns have changed dramatically through the course of COVID. So that's nearly 4 months now. But there's many conversations, whether it's a parking meter, like you see in some of the larger communities for the on-street parking or some of the on-street parking. The possibility to open up our garages is something else that's been discussed. And the idea is employees have free parking, push them to the parking decks, and then the consumers would be able to park for a period of time in the different parts of the community, or I'm sorry, the downtown. But then also another discussion is closing streets, lane closures, also making that more walkable. We also have the outdoor dining that we're experiencing now amidst COVID, and even the angle of parking. While there might have been a best practice that engineering has provided, which is exactly what they should do for the community, maybe there's an adjustment or something different that the residents want for downtown parking. So that's something else to be considered as well. Next slide. Just some other recommendations on public parking. Next slide. The Catalyst Project. This is the one that probably had the most attention. And a couple of areas that I'd like to discuss that we saw was we've discussed the Connect Transit downtown transfer station for Bloomington. And this has been something that Connect Transit has discussed. It's something that found its way into this document. And where we stand today with Connect Transit and the transfer station is actually they have identified locations, and the city with council approval, it didn't require any sort of formal council approval, but with council discussion, we've offered up 2 sites as potential sites for the downtown transfer station. Knowing that we have high users, transit users. I believe the study shows that they are high users of the library, the Law and Justice Center for McLean County, the Bloomington Police Department. And that's one of the reasons that City Hall itself, 109 East Olive Street, has been offered up as a possibility. And also another area is Market Street Garage as a possibility. So these are areas that are yet to be determined, and Connect Transit, I believe, with their consultant, expect to have a completed document to start sharing publicly on what the final locations, let's say the top 2 or 3, will make its way to the public. I believe that will be in August next month. So it's coming very soon. Next slide. Another area is the Bloomington Public Library. There was a discussion about where the library could be. And this is one that Jeannie Hamilton is the librarian, the executive director for the librarian. And Julian is the chairman of the library board. I've had several meetings with them and along with the elected officials. And we feel that the solution lies right in the space that they currently are. And there are so many possibilities that we feel for expansion. So maybe the $30 million, $32 million new location, new building that had been previously discussed might not fit for the community right now in terms of fit. I'm talking about the cost, change in a location, and a more modest expansion, very much not shortchanging the employees, not shortchanging the residents, but a modest expansion to meet all of those needs, where it's an improvement of the facility itself, because it does need to be improved, and then also additional space to meet the community needs. Do we have that possibility in the current location? And that's exactly what the Bloomington Library is working through a process with their consultants currently. We have an expanded parking opportunity, Jackson Street that runs east-west. Maybe there's a potential for that to be vacated. But again, the opportunity possibly lies right in the space that they're currently at. But this was very much a topic and a consideration that was in this downtown task force document. Next slide, please. Next slide. And I believe this is the final slide. Is there one more, Phil? And here we go. I got the conclusion. And what I've done, just to recap, and I'll turn my time over to, or turn this over to Melissa here in a minute to walk through what we have actually accomplished in the downtown, that the credit truly goes to the elected officials, and also this document that really has been used as a template. And where we go next on a document that's nearly 3 years old. Portions of the document, there is tremendous support, I believe, in talking with the elected officials. That will be up to you. But I just wanted to take a few minutes to walk through the task force document, the 16 pages of it that I think everybody is well versed in, even in the community. And then also turn this over at this time to Melissa Hahn, the Economic Development Director, to share the accomplishments. Melissa?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you tonight about what we've been able to do over the course of the last year since the department was created. And I'm working on sharing my screen here, so hopefully everyone can see that. This is not an all-encompassing list, but we're trying to hit on some of the highlights over the last year. The first one being is the task force report recommended for the Parks Department to make some improvements in our public areas downtown, including the Law and Justice Center. And so that was completed in the summer of 2019. The Parks Department was able to make those landscaping improvements in front of the Law and Justice Center, and then also along Front Street with the improvements there and the raised planter beds, we were able to add some additional landscaping there as well. Also, we do use the public space on the museum property as much as we possibly can as well for the farmers market and different events that we have around the square. So we're very grateful for any green space that we get downtown and try to use it the best that we can. The next item was that the Public Works Department was able to complete the Front Street streetscape improvements, including installation of additional electric conduit along there where opportunity allowed. There were 2 additional conduits and empty conduits installed for future electrical usage for the decorative lighting, as well as other amenities that we will be able to install downtown as funding allows. So that was done once again in that summer of 2019. Throughout the time when the season has allowed, sidewalk and ADA ramp improvements have been made throughout the downtown, as well as resurfacing of Main Street from front to Mulberry and Monroe Street from Madison to East. And once again, with those improvements, Public Works were able to go in and add some additional spare empty conduit for when we have the opportunity to do additional electric decorative street lighting, and in order to allow for addition of more outlets for us to use throughout the downtown. We're also installed a high visibility crosswalk, and signage was installed at Center Street and Monroe with some pedestrian signage for that intersection. I know it's been an area of concern for downtown business owners and residents as well, so we were able to get that installed. Also in 2019, we were able to expand the holiday decorations throughout 15 blocks of the downtown. So we added some additional new things, and then also expanded where we had holiday decorations in the downtown, and we hope to continue that once again as funding allows to make it quite the occasion down there during the holidays. We also purchased and installed 94 self-watering planters throughout the last year to help cut down on the need for staff to go down and water. And they worked out very well. We're very happy with them, and it's definitely improved the look and feel of downtown. We also installed new spring and summer banners this season, so hopefully you've been able to get down there and see those, trying to brighten things up. We hope to have them sooner, but COVID slowed us down a little bit, but we were able to get those done, and we'll continue to change those out with the seasons. We're continuing to provide power washing of the sidewalks in the spring, summer of every year, and then also we have expanded our partnership with Mark First for litter and leaf cleanup throughout the year. Another thing I wanted to mention that I did forget to include on that slide as well was that we did also establish the Downtown Cultural District, which was done in May of 2019. which includes a great large portion of the downtown. So that was done as well. Programming was another thing that was noted in the report. And so to that, we held 56 events in 2019. That was in the calendar year. We had 57 events scheduled for 2020. We were very excited, had some new things coming, and unfortunately COVID kind of held us back a little there. So we're hoping to continue that as soon as we can. We did expanded programming at the farmers market. We average about 3,000 patrons downtown. During the summer months, we're out there every Saturday with the farmers market. And we were also able to develop curbside farmers market to facilitate an online store with curbside pickup during COVID-19, which has been a great benefit to our farmers as well as the businesses downtown. We also partnered with Public Works to install a new electrical outlets at the base of the decorative lighting around the square. This will help our farmers market vendors, as well as providing better accessibility when we're having events, when we can have events on the square again. We also applied for a Bloomberg asphalt grant to fund a Route 66 parklet downtown. And we've coordinated with businesses to utilize parklets during special events, and then also with the outdoor dining during COVID. For outreach and advertising, we've improved our social media presence for the downtown. We've got about 1,000 new followers on multiple channels and platforms. We've also updated our marketing materials, which includes new kiosk inserts, as well as a new downtown wayfinding map, and also a new visitor's guide, which I hope you've all had the opportunity to look at. It's on a flip book on the Downtown Bloomington website. So if you haven't, please check that out. It's a great guide for our downtown. We've also increased advertising through our billboards, Connect Transit bus banners, geofencing, and social media. In regards to public parking, one of the recommendations of the report was to relocate city vehicles from the government center lot to the Lincoln deck, which we have done. And we've also started to use that lot for events downtown when we can. So that's worked out very well and created another event space for us in the downtown. We also coordinated 10-minute parking spaces for curbside pickup. Once that started to begin with COVID and the shutdown, we were able to make that accommodation for a lot of our business owners, and we've received great feedback, and some of them would like to continue that even beyond COVID, because it's worked out really well for them and provided a new opportunity for their business. We also coordinated with Public Works to facilitate the expanded outdoor dining and have conducted a downtown parking survey of business owners, residents, and visitors. This information will be provided in addition to the parking study that the facilities department is also currently working on. So those were some of our accomplishments, and here are some things that we are still currently working on that we're looking forward to complete in 2020. The first is a new downtown website. It's definitely on a platform that's reached its final days, so we're looking forward to that. Having a much more user-friendly downtown website, make it easier for people to navigate and bring people downtown. We're also looking to implement a downtown parklet program for businesses that will be available every year and just a reoccurring thing, as we do with a lot of our other type of outdoor cafes and things. We're also going to update the amenities and the electrical, such as the decorative lighting, as funding allows. So as we're able to do that, when we have funding available, we are looking at those opportunities, as well as the addition of the wayfinding signage currently being installed. We are also looking at painted crosswalks. We had hoped this summer we were going to have some of the crosswalks painted in a couple different designs and have people come down and vote on them while they were coming down for events. Unfortunately, since we've not been able to have those events, to have people downtown looking at them, we put that on hold for the time being. We really want to give the public an opportunity to vote on the type of design and color that they would like to have in the crosswalks downtown. So we look forward to making that available as soon as we can have more people downtown. We're also looking to continue to expand the outdoor dining opportunities with the parklet program and other potential ideas, as well as new upgraded dual trash and recycling bins. Once again, as funding allows, we look to update and improve those amenities throughout the downtown to increase beautification. and that will include some additional wayfinding kiosks. We are continuing efforts to promote the development of vacant properties downtown. We do now provide a monthly commercial report of available space in the downtown, and that can be found on the City Economic Development webpage as well as the Downtown Bloomington website. We're also continuing to work with Connect Transit on the Downtown Transfer Center, and we're continuing our relationship with the DBA committees such to provide additional public art downtown. And we're also looking at updating the decorative lighting. One of the recommendations of the report was to provide canopy lighting downtown, which we are very excited about. But we had reached out to some of the property owners who were not interested in us connecting lighting to their buildings. So we are looking at some alternatives to some new and improved decorative lighting throughout the downtown. So we're very excited on those things that we have coming up throughout the next year. And with that, I will turn it over to any questions.
Questions at this point, questions, commentary. We're going to start with Councilmember Carrillo and then Matthew.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, and thank you for that presentation. That was super, super helpful. And I think what a lot of folks told me they were hungry for was revisiting that report and seeing what are those things we had checked off the list and what things are still in the works. So I guess first a question around a process question about how this is going to come back to council. And so I guess my question is, if we're approving and accepting the downtown report, does that mean we are basically co-signing on all of the recommendations included in the report, or we are picking this up as a starting point? Just as
at 500 feet, Jen, the answer on that one is, this is just, even if because we do have a downtown plan, we have a comp plan, we have all kinds of plans. It basically says these are our policy priorities. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're committing to any specific dollar amounts. And any one of those would have to be approved by the council as we go forward. Or if somebody in our TIF district in downtown came in and said, hey, I'm gonna put in a $50 million hotel and whatever, I want these kinds of incentives through the TIF money, that all has to be approved by council. So this is really just, and again, we're not voting tonight exactly. We're not, those are plans. Plans are always subject to some move and loosey-goosey changing. Mr. Gleason, do you want to add anything to that? Is that, I know I'm a little more loosey-goosey in using my language than you are, but Tim?
No, Alderwoman Carrillo's question was a good one. And really, we step back and we're going to take direction from you guys.
Okay. Councilmember Matthew and Jen.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that we're basically accepting the work of this committee and accepting the report that they presented to us, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every single one of the recommendations are things that we're going to move forward on without bringing back to a public discussion, because I've gotten that question. I guess the second question is from Melissa. So I heard you say several times as funding allows. And I am, I get a lot of emails with folks asking like why we aren't moving faster, why we aren't doing more. And so I just want to get your perspective. What do you think are the primary barriers to us getting more done downtown? In other words, like what's keeping us from being able to do more faster?
So I think it goes to the question of more and what that entails. So for instance, with the new wayfinding signage going along center, we looked at, there's really not anything beyond that. The decorative lighting hasn't been installed. There hasn't been a lot of trees planted. And so for any of those types of projects, it's not something that we've necessarily got the money currently in the budget for us to do those things. So, as we have funding that's available for those types of projects, then we will move to, when we are doing the resurfacing or installing the wayfinding, we would be able to put the decorative lighting and additional amenities throughout the downtown.
So it sounds like money is probably the primary barrier. And I ask because, I do get those questions, and I think it's important for downtown stakeholders to know what to advocate for, right? So is the problem that we don't have agreement or consensus on the council about the direction going forward? So is it a political problem? Is it a funding problem? Because, I think folks want clarity as to like, where should they get to work if they want to see more significant improvements in our downtown. So I appreciate that. I guess the last question is, again, going back to process, I've already committed to support us receiving this. I think it's the least that we can do to acknowledge the tremendous amount of work that went into putting it together by so many bright people who volunteered to do this. I guess my only source of tension and conflict is like that we are closer to the 3-year mark on that shelf life, and that it feels like, we're starting at a deficit in that, we should have adopted this years ago. And so I've got folks who are saying, yes, we should adopt this as a first step. And I've got folks who are saying, like, we should just do this process all over. And so I guess I'm curious to hear from Tim and just the staff, like whether you feel this is a good starting point for us to like build upon.
Tim, did you want to weigh in on that, or Melissa? Tim?
I guess a couple of quick comments to the questions and comments that you raised. Let's talk about funding real quick. This is an area that, the projects that we talk about, and I think that this was one of the bigger reasons for Councilman Matthey's council initiative was to discuss and prioritize this. I think he is going to speak next. But this was a priority for us. We knew that we needed to find funding to do some of the things that we were talking about downtown. So with our state representatives, so Senator Bill Brady, Senator Jason Berickman, definitely Representative Dan Brady, and Representative Keith Summer. That was one of our capital project asks that we made last year for sort of a global high-level allowance, and the ask was $3.5 million. Well, an interesting number. $3.5 million over the course of 5 different projects are appropriated now for the city of Bloomington in the state of Illinois FY21 budget. Now it's for infrastructure, can be used different locations throughout the state. But I think our ask has been heard because that number is identical to what the the capital project ask was. So again, and I know that Alderman Matthey is going to speak next, but we just look to council to make that decision, whether it's the adoption of this, whether you pull out 2 or 3 projects and you say, city manager, you make this happen. That's what we look for, maybe this evening or follow-up conversations. What are the priorities? And whatever you adopt, again, that's up to you. Mayor?
Council member, thank you so much, Mr. Gleason. I do certainly very much appreciate that. Obviously, this is a step forward to being somewhat more strategic in the things that came out about this. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily immediately up to date, but I'm going to go ahead and go to Councilmember Matthey. Since it's your initiative and I see your hand up, we'll go Matthey, Emig, and Painter. Jamie.
Thanks, Mayor. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring this back is, I've been kind of involved in stuff with the city of Bloomington as both direct and indirect participant for about 16 years. And 12 of those years, downtown was listed as a top 5 priority for the city council over and over and over again. And nothing happened for like 12 of those years, or very, very little happened during that 12-year period of time. I do appreciate the report from Melissa and Tim because more has happened downtown in the last 2 years than, a decade and a half prior. So I really appreciate all the stuff that we've gotten done. Downtown continues to be a growing tourist destination. I was walking through downtown this morning and a couple asked me for directions, and they're from Washington, D.C. And I don't know that I agree with them that they decided that COVID-19 was a great time to drive all of Route 66, but they're doing it anyway. And so they were in town today in Bloomington as part of their trip. They're going all the way to California. I'm not sure that's the destination I would want either right now, but hey, power to them. But I've talked to people from Poland, from Russia, from Germany, from all over the United States that are stopping here as part of their Route 66 experience. So that's growing. I think downtown is increasingly or has been for years, a small business incubator. Many companies that started downtown that have moved to other locations around the city as they outgrew and needed bigger spaces. And I think that it's a home for many, many people. Estimates say between 800 and 1,000 people live downtown. And I love to see the progress we're doing. I was bringing the report back to make sure that focus stays there. If there's different directions we want to move forward where we can keep the focus going forward, that's awesome. If this group decides that we need to do a downtown task force 2020, I look happy to read in that report after the rest of you write it. I think some of the big pieces for me that are still outstanding, a priority for me is streetscaping is one of the huge things because it lends to the tourism, it lends to the business, and it lends to the sense of home. And we had one rough streetscaping plan from a few years ago, which involved putting trees in, and we put some decorative lights in, and the decorative lights made it, and we got some trees, and it's better. But the default in downtown is still asphalt and cement. And at a certain point, one of the things in the report is that we wanted to declare the entire downtown as a park. The reason for that was, to increase plantings and see a change as we do projects and as we make repairs, to see a change where instead of we fix something and then we pour some new cement, can we fix something and then incorporate that into a new bed of plantings, of flowers, of perennials that are coming back every year automatically? How do we take that next step? I think COVID-19 has offered us some unique perspectives as well, in the fact that now we see what it looks like when we've closed down some places where we've closed down an entire lane. And, all the people that were shouting doom and gloom of, oh my gosh, you can't close down a lane of traffic because nothing's going to work right. It's working great. One of the attorneys stopped me the other day to say that he feels like with the outdoor dining and seating and the bars that are out there, he feels like there's more of a sense of community in downtown than in the last decade that he's been practicing law downtown. So the outdoor activities have been simply amazing. And, one of the things, so I'd say streetscaping is a major goal for me. And then I know that it seems weird and I keep bringing up electrical conduit, but there's a couple of really important reasons for that. And one of the biggest ones is we have this company in town that has just got a $2.5 billion additional round of funding to build electric vehicles in Bloomington. And we've got, I think, 3 charging stations across 2 different garages that I'm aware of. We're going to get to a point at some point in the future where we're going to need to say, hey, we should put some electrical charging stations next to the museum because it's a tourist destination, as I talked about before. And, we're going to need additional lighting and, things like canopies and everything else that we're doing. So I don't know, I guess I'll stop talking, but I think that Downtown Development Division, Economic Development is doing an amazing job. I think some of the ordinance changes that we're looking at for parklets and outdoor events on a more permanent basis are going to help. But the streetscaping and parking are 2 big areas that I want to see us keep driving forward on. And of course, then we need to plug in the Connect Transit whenever they finish their recommendations. Cough, cough, taken 3.5 years. What's going on? Cough, cough. So yeah, but thank you everybody for humoring me and listening, and let's keep rocking it forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Emig and then Painter.
Yes, thank you. And thanks, Councilperson Matthew, for bringing this back up. And I appreciate the report from city staff. It was really nice to hear again, all emphasize that we've accomplished. I'm not the only one on council who's a fan of strong towns. And while they advocate for small incremental change by many hands, They also suggest when you develop a strategic plan, which is what this is, that you find opportunities for some big aspirational change. And I like that this plan embodies both, that we've already gotten started on it. The city staff have already pushed it forward. We have identified first steps to test and have found some great success. And Strong Towns also says, don't take years to complete the plan. This just wears people out and builds cynicism. So I think now we do have an opportunity to build this back up where it goes. I like that there's an opportunity to think about what's in section 4, not the catalyst project necessarily that was recommended, but I don't see in the plan that it's committing us to a catalyst project. It creates a framework that can guide future action. Indeed, it states if inclusion of the library in this project is not feasible or desirable, the city could alternatively consider a mixed use facility. And this is in reference to Market Street Garage, including housing or office space. And I also would say that it might be useful to look at the concerns that surface from this group, given library expansion recommendations, just to be more informed about, how we're going to go forward to implement this approach. So I'm very much in favor of this plan, and I've spoken with many, many downtown business owners and residents, and they are very glad to see it come back, and really are suggesting strongly that this council put the plan into the rear view mirror. We passed it, now we're ready to move forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Councilmember Painter.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for your input. I've really appreciated this whole discussion. Thank you, Jamie, for bringing it forward. Thriving downtowns are an economic driver, and crumbling downtowns are a tax dollar money pit. And with the mall closing down, I think it behooves us to put a lot of attention into downtown. I am very much in favor of this plan. I think that we need to adopt it, and then we need to set our priorities. And in the next budget cycle, we need to budget for it. We need to lay out a plan on how we're going to pay for it. And I'm not really sure where COVID is going to take us on this, but that shouldn't stop us from at least making a plan. I think it's really a good thing and a good platitude to plan your work and work your plan. That's the way you get there. So I'm very much in favor of this, and I am voting in favor of accepting it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Bowling.
Yeah, I'm on. Yes, I'm in favor of the plan, but in general, I tend to prioritize, and I also want to make sure that the staff has clear direction, and it also moves into the funding, which is what Johnny said too. I'm not sure I want to accept the plan as written, because almost half the things that are in there have already been implemented, which is a good thing. But if the council prioritizes what they want and puts money toward it as it's available, because we don't know what the finances are going to be moving forward, I think that it will be successful. One thing I want to be careful with is to not add too much. I want to focus on the infrastructure of the historic buildings. I don't want to camouflage them with a lot of what I would call frou-frou, putting trees, having signage, lighting in the trees. That would be the way I look at it. Carefully look at which intersections you want to have decorative crossing. If you're going to go to a small town, which we would be considered a small town, it is the historic part of the downtown that is so attractive to anybody, whether it's the person that lives in the town or a visitor. And I feel we really need to hold on to that more than anything. And that's just prioritize and hold on to the historic. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Boland. And at this point, we are getting to the point of running out of time. I think Councilmember Matthew, you have your hand up, but that may have been an old hand. So I'm going to go to Councilmember Bray in Millawambwe, and would ask us to be as expeditious if possible. If we need to extend the time, then fine. So Councilmember Bray.
So thank you, Mayor. And just some reactions or thoughts. I had the opportunity to work with the Downtown Task Force. I was a member on the committee. And certainly it was a lot of sessions and discussions on what were some good ideas for where we were in the town at the time, in our city at the time, and what were the things that we needed to really focus on. And so like Alderman Matthew, who also served on the task force with me, just so excited, and thank you to Melissa Hahn and her group that they've worked with this as a resource and moved forward into the spaces that we were really excited about. Some of the ideas that are there, we've grown past. We know that at the time we didn't know what our library would do, but now we know that our library board has recommended and is moving into the space that we will grow at our current site. So that's no longer a question. We also have the Connect Transit study coming our way very soon, as mentioned. And so the idea about the Market Street garage catalyst project has kind of moved on, if you will. So that's dated. But I'm supportive of pushing forward, as Alderman Matthew made mention, of pulling out pieces of this report and getting some focus around the streetscaping and the lighting, solving for our parking. And then I think there's new ideas surfacing. I too have had conversations and had input from citizens, and there are some really exciting opportunities to think about architectural. I'll call it an architectural commission. That's a common thing that you see now. I don't recall us having the opportunity, and Jamie, please keep me honest, having the opportunity to talk about that or incorporate that into our thoughts at the time. So I'm ready, as several have said, to move forward. I don't think kind of hamstringing ourselves with ideas from 3 years ago is the best way to go. I think we pivot into what's next. We pull out what's left over, and we come up with some really good ideas as we move forward. And so again, I appreciate that we now have a structure in place at the city to do this. We have our economic development division, and with our focus on the downtown. And so that would be my thought and how we would get this important work done. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Councilmember Bray. And then Councilmember Millawambwe.
Okay, thank you. I want to take a moment also to thank those members of the council and the community who participated in this important work. I know that it's time that they will never get back, but it's definitely very appreciated. I also want to thank staff, and particularly Tim and Melissa, because one of the issues that I had seen being on the council for all these years was that the downtown was everybody's problem and nobody's problem at the same time. So I think by now having a downtown economic development division with someone whose clear focus is on that is extremely helpful, and I think that's why we're sitting here today and having talking about some of the successes. And similarly to what's been said earlier by Councilmember Matthew, and as well as Councilmember Bray. I think, you know, in the spirit of even more success is for us to kind of pull out those elements that we can work on right away and try to make progress, because I do think a lot of these plans sometimes are daunting and that's why they sit on the shelves. So let's figure out what it is that we can do and address right away, the small manageable pieces. And then, you know, before you know it, you know, we'll have something much bigger to celebrate. So that's it.
Whoops. Oh, sorry, Maboka. So at this point, I'm assuming the direction that we have seems to be, because we're not doing a vote, approval, but maybe as this is brought back to us, if there are some obvious things that are no longer relevant, relocation of the library, and maybe some things that maybe we've already accomplished, those could be somewhat surgically removed. Sounds like that. At this point, we're going to go ahead and move on to item, because we don't act on that, to item C. And this, I gather, is a pretty quick housekeeping chore. It's consideration and potential action regarding ordinance 2020-18, an ordinance declaring a local emergency due to the COVID virus, as requested by the legal department. I'm going to turn this over to Tim Gleason. And at this point, he's not recommending any modifications, but he has 5 minutes and we have 5 minutes to respond. Mr. Gleason. Oh, I'm sorry.
No updates, Mayor.
No updates at all. Okay. Any questions of Mr. Gleason on the COVID situation? I don't see any. So, Mr. Gleason, you still have the floor. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Bolin. Oh, and oh my gosh. Okay. Several popped up.
Yeah, the only question I have, since we're in phase 4 and there's nothing in the near future that says we're going to move into phase 5, how long is this ordinance really going to stay in place? Can we begin to set it aside? I guess that's my question.
Mr. Gleason?
My recommendation would be that it remain until we truly are in phase 5. I don't see many changes that will occur in phase 4, but they could. But I do think it appropriate for it to remain.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Craybill and Matthew.
Yes, I wanted to ask, and I emailed you back and forth a little bit, Tim, about this with regard to ADA compliance with the outdoor dining, and just looking at the outdoor dining and bar service operation rules, which require ADA compliance. And I know that for a lot of places that's not the case. And if you could talk about how we're trying to work with the businesses to make them compliant. And I think that has to do with ramps to the outdoor dining areas, proper level heights on tables, that type of thing.
Yeah, thank you. In my comments, I probably covered this a little bit too quickly under the COVID comments earlier. But this is an area that staff, we stood this up amidst COVID to provide for the outdoor drive-up service that then turned into outdoor dining. And we have staff that are assessing what some of the ADA challenges are and then the opportunities. So under the COVID, try to find the opportunities that we have in the CDBG funds, the CARES fund, the $155,000 for businesses. While there might be fixes in the interim for outdoor dining, this could also lend itself to a longer permanent type of solution to provide some of the ADA ramps that businesses might not have been able to pay for previously. And we're grandfathered. I mean, well within their right not to provide that, but trying to create a more accessible and welcoming downtown. This is all part of it, and trying to seize an opportunity amidst COVID. But to answer your question, Alderman Crable, city staff are assessing this, and actually I might turn it over to Deputy City Manager Tyus. Do you have any additional comments, Billy?
There we go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. No, I wouldn't. I know that staff has actually been going not just through the downtown, but also citywide, as we want to make sure that any accessibility improvements are covered citywide. We're studying that. They will come back with what they find, and then we're going to work directly with the business owners. I want to say this right, to make sure that when we go in the door, we're not going in necessarily with a hammer, but more working with folks to make sure that we are helping them to become compliant when there are accessibility issues.
Thank you very much. At this point, we're going to move Councilmember Mathey.
Keep trying to skip me, Mayor. Tim, I was just going to say, not just downtown, but the whole city. I'm hearing a lot of people commenting on how much they like this new shift to outdoor dining. And I just was thinking that it might be worth looking at what do we need to do something from a long-term zoning perspective. So maybe I'm dumping work on Katie's plate, but do we need to do something to encourage more kind of the outdoor atmosphere at restaurants all over town that we've had, that we've got going right now that hasn't been in place for years? I know that some of that probably drops onto the lap of the McLean County Health Department at some point too, but is there things that we can do to make the zoning easier to make outdoor dining places a lot easier for even the temporary ones, like we have tents and stuff right now, to make that easier for restaurants and bars to do after, well, hopefully when everything reopens, right? So.
Mr. Gleason?
Yeah, I think we know that this is going to turn into something permanent. And again, I'll go back to the document that we were talking about earlier on the downtown task force. You know, there were components of this that we thought that there was an opportunity to seize an opportunity, I should say, amidst COVID. Fully expect that this is going to have so much support that it's going to turn into permanent opportunity for downtown, different parts of the community. And I'll say very candidly, you know, this phase 4, and actually to the question that Alderwoman Bolin asked about the emergency order, you know, I think that we're going to be in phase 4 for quite some time. I'm going to use that to my advantage so that we can continue working towards what downtown outdoor eating looks like and opportunities post COVID-19. So we are actively working towards that, Jamie, and that's something that actually Deputy City Manager Tyus, it's a priority for him.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not just looking at just at downtown. I had the opportunity to eat, you know, kind of like in a tent that was set up on one of the restaurants out off of Veterans Parkway. And it was great sitting out there, nice breeze, good weather and everything. And we just really enjoyed that in an area that is traditional parking lot, right? So it's an older building where this restaurant is, and they don't have an outdoor seating area, and it was just nice even under the temporary tent. So, you know, I just like to make sure we're looking at the whole community when we do that too.
And I think once we got the horse has gotten out of the barn, we're not shutting the door. Is that a pretty safe way to put it, Mr. Gleason?
It definitely is. And Alderman Mathey, I need to be careful in my messaging, because this is not just about the downtown. Definitely looking at the citywide opportunities, definitely getting the kind of feedback from the entire community and all the different locations of the community that we're onto something here, and it's only going to get better.
Thank you very much. We were way over budget in terms of that whole 5 minutes we were supposed to spend on this. At this point, we're going to go ahead and move to city manager's discussion. I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Gleason.
Very quickly, Mayor and Council, I want to recognize Public Works. The bulk waste pickup is going extremely well. Today is the first nice day in July that we've had, or at least since the bulk waste started July 6th. While there might be some complaints out there that I'm not aware of, a tremendous amount of support and compliments for what the Public Works team is doing regarding bulk waste pickup. Very much appreciate the community's patience for us pushing this off 2 months, but it was the right thing to do. Real quick, Committee of the Whole. I don't expect a long meeting, but we have some good presentations that are coming up. Alderwoman Boland talked about the reappointment of Ryan Whitehouse. Well, he's the current chairman of the Connect Transit board. And one thing that as a byproduct of that meeting that she was sharing is that Connect Transit's going to come and present at the Committee of the Whole COVID update, a finance update to the City Council. Next item is going to be the PSCRB year-end review. We're going to have that presentation. And then lastly, we're going to have the Water Master Plan presentation. This is actually very exciting. We're talking about infrastructure improvements that we've been working towards for quite some time that are long overdue. But this is a targeted plan of what the next 20 years looks like for the city of Bloomington regarding the Water Master Plan. This is potentially a $175 million infrastructure improvement, and it's one that Public Works is going to publicly present at the Committee of the Whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gleason. Thank you again for all you do. First, I will be as brief as possible, but there are two very quick things. One is well, they're both important. One is of the utmost importance because it involves the core of our community, and that is yesterday we had a hate group that is over a century and a half old in the United States. That is a cancer in the United States that was distributing leaflets in our community, hate-oriented messages. And while that is part of your First Amendment right, if anybody wants to act on those things, that's a felony. If you want to terrorize people or scare people or hurt people or murder people, this organization has been littered with murders in its 150 plus year history. In fact, Congress passed a law 150 years ago this year, 1870, that the federal government attempted to try to do what they could to stop the terrorizing of our citizens by this organization. And it's sad that it's here, but it does not reflect the values of Bloomington. We embrace America's values of being a melting pot, regardless whether you're, whatever your religion, whatever your race, whatever your ethnic background, we welcome all people. And that's the strength of America. So this has just been quite disturbing. So on the other note, a much lighter note, Tim Gleason, happy anniversary, dude. So thank you so much. At this point, I'm going to go to council members' discussions, and I see Council Member Crable and then Carrillo. We'll start with you two, and we're going to go around. Council Member Carrillo.
Yep, just wanted to say thank you so much for speaking out against some of those leaflets that got widely shared yesterday, and just want to encourage us to both be outraged, as we should be, that explicit forms of white supremacy are still very much alive in our community, and also examine the more subtle ways that all of us participate in that culture every day.
Thank you very much. Council Member Crable, Emig, and Math. Council Member Crable.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things I wanted to point out. In the consent agenda, there was an ordinance that was changed related to public indecency that referenced it being a misdemeanor to dress in a different dress than the sex that you are, basically. And so I wanted to thank the city staff. This was something that was actually brought up to me in the community, that this still existed. Don't know when it was actually enacted. Talked to Tim about that, and I said, it sounds like something that, an aldermanic initiative maybe or something. He said, no, I think this is something that we can do now. And so I appreciate him, putting this on the agenda. Appreciate Jeff Jurgens working on the language. And even though this is not something that, I don't know if it's ever been enforced, but I think it's important for the community to know that it's no longer in existence. So I certainly appreciate that. On the second note, I guess just sorry, a little bit more negative. In talking with disability advocates and how, what we're doing with regard to outdoor seating, and what they're telling me, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree, is that like with so many other things, ADA compliance and making sure spaces are available for those with disability, accessibility issues are an afterthought. And I just don't think that should be a case where, businesses should consider compliance as being a nuisance, right? It's about fairness. And, when they're telling me that, we've got residents in our downtown with mobility issues, and they hear about the outdoor seating and they're very excited about it. And then they go and they find out that, that it wasn't built for them. And so they either have to go back home or, even go up to normal where apparently they've done some things up there. So, I like what I heard tonight, Tim and Billy, and I agree. Let's try to use some of that CDBG money, to make things accessible, for everybody in our community. So just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Craybill. Councilmember Emig Matthew Black.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to thank Public Works for the bulk waste pickup. I got a big thumbs up from the neighborhood association at Founders Grove that they were very impressed. So thank you to the staff for that. I have a couple of comments to make, larger comments to close out our discussion earlier about Connect Transit. I just want to remind everyone that the intergovernmental agreement with Connect Transit is going to be amended. And the goal there is just to provide more direction and accountability for future policy and transactions. So I think that's a positive move forward. And I'm also really delighted that we are actively making appointments to the transit board that do better represent our residents and their needs. And I'm very enthusiastic about that change. I think that's important to note. My second or last comment, I should say, I guess this is in a series of three. I want to make a very brief remark or series of remarks about the flyers that were distributed this weekend. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which I check every so often just to kind of refresh my sense of what's going on nationally, they say that the Klan has been greatly weakened by internal conflicts. However, while some factions have preserved an openly racist and militant approach, others have tried to enter the mainstream, cloaking their racism as mere civil rights for whites. And I think that's a lot of what we saw this weekend. My family found flyers left by the Loyal White Knights, a self-proclaimed KKK group. And we were very sad given the historical racial violence demonstrated by this group. But at the same time, we see the act as rather a desperate attempt to sow discord and dissidence. And I say the best way to counteract these actions is to demonstrate within our own action and policy and work that this is truly an inclusive community and just for residents. At least that's where we're working towards. And if you do find any of these flyers, notify the police so that the incidences can be documented, and then move on with the important work of uplifting the community, because we do have a lot of work left to do. And I would say that I would argue it's not so much that we're a melting pot, but rather a community that has great strength in our diversity. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Matthey, Black, and Boland, and then we're done.
Thank you. Julie, thank you for that. That was a great way of saying it. I really appreciated that. Also, congratulations to Julie on your new job. So that's very exciting.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, Jen and I had the opportunity to speak with a group of hopeful next generation leaders in our community, the Next Gen Initiative at Miller Park. And somehow the rain didn't hit Miller Park when it was apparently torrentially downpouring in the rest of Bloomington Normal. So that was good. It looked very ominous, but it never rained on us. And it was great conversation. I think that the average age there, if you excluded me, was probably like 25. I probably raised it quite a bit myself, unfortunately. But great conversation had, lots of people from various local governments in our area were there, school boards and county and candidates for office and stuff. So it was a lot of great conversations. And it just reminds me sometimes that not everybody understands what local government does, what we're supposed to do and what we can do. And so that it's incumbent on all of us to keep doing our best to provide education in terms of what's the difference between city council and the county board and the school districts. And there's, most of these young people that were there didn't have the slightest clue what the difference was and what we were responsible for and where their tax money was going for. So I think it's all of us, we need to keep working to make sure that we reach out to, the next generation who will hopefully be sitting on this board in, some point in the future and doing awesome things. So I was just really, I thought it was a really cool event, and even if I was the old white guy sitting there, so it was fun.
Councilmember Black and then Boland.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And Jamie, as a future old white guy, it heartens me to hear that the youth are
there already, man.
Some might say I'm there already. I don't know, but it heartens me to hear that more folks are getting involved. And I read today that the PCSR or the Police Review Board was talking about adding some youth members. I think that's a great idea. Carve out some seats for those folks, and that's a great way for us to help get people involved, engage in the community, learn how things work, and then take their ideas for reform. So that's really good. I'm just going to note here briefly that I look forward to staff's update to us in the near future about the West Market Street Plaza. I know they got some press. I know there's been a lot of questions about where that project sits and what that will look like. Trying to be very careful in public remarks as we're currently involved in litigation. So, but I know that a lot of us have strong interest in that project, especially myself. And if you have the opportunity, watch Hamilton. It's such a great show, and watch it again this weekend. It's fantastic, and I hadn't listened to that show in a long time, and it just was wonderful. So if you get the chance, take a look.
Scott, I did try to emphasize to them that I started off as a young white guy and I got old somewhere when I wasn't paying attention. So
I better pay attention then.
Councilmember Boland.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on what the mayor said and say, happy anniversary, Tim.
Thank you, Don. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilmember Black. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Carrillo. Madam, no, that's right. We can do. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed can stay on. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.